Ladies and gentlemen, some of you saw the announcement on Facebook this morning that there was going to be a big surprise on 3 in the Keystone. And if you listen to the podcast this morning, you got a little bit of an idea of what was going on. But Chris and I are going to put together a supplemental piece on our YouTube channel. So now we are live on YouTube and you guys can see what we look like. What's going on there, Chris?
Hi, world.
You put some faces to the names. In case you didn't know already. But essentially what we're going to do in this segment is we're going to make it a little different than our podcast and keep it pretty brief and short, I would say, not to be redundant there. But Chris and I are going to compete with football picks against the spread. We're each going to give our 5 top picks for the weekend, including our best bet. And we're going to give a little bit of a brief reasoning why. And, we're hoping to keep these videos to 10 to 15 minutes. So it's just a short hit for you guys and all you gamblers out there. I would say tag along at your own risk because we're not taking any responsibility for any bad picks that are out there.
Yeah, we're not giving official gambling advice or betting advice. So if you take our picks and you lose money, that's on you. Yeah, because we're not claiming to be prognosticators. This is just off of the, off the cuff of not off the cuff, but based on what we believe. So if you tag along and want to go on a ride with us, that's great. If not, understandable too, but it's your choice.
I mean, I haven't lost this year, so
me neither.
Yeah,
we're both undefeated.
Yeah, undefeated, never lost.
Exactly.
But let's jump right into it. Again, 5 picks each. We're going to compete over the course of the year. We don't know each other's picks beforehand, so there could be some crossover here, where there may even be you on one side and me on another. So why don't you hit me up with your first one?
All right. So the first game I picked out was the 49ers Bears. I got this line at Bears plus 6.5. They are at home. And if you listen to the other episodes previously, I'm not big on either of these teams first and foremost, but I'm really not big on the 49ers. I think they're overrated coming into this year. I'm not sure where I've heard them having Super Bowl hype. I don't know where that's coming from. I'm not that big on them at all. Starting off the year, it's always a little bit rusty for some of these teams, especially teams on the road. They are traveling a substantial distance. And I just feel like, and they also have a first-year full starting quarterback in Trey Lance. Obviously, he played a few games started last year, but for the most part, this is the first time he's going to be starting from, ideally for him and the team start to finish. And so with that being said, I see some trends of favoring San Francisco 14-6 against the spread in their last 20 appearances against Chicago. You're always leery of those kind of trends because it's not like it's the same team that's played 20 times.
Right.
So they throw a lot of stuff at you, especially at the beginning of the year. You got to be mindful of and look out for because nobody knows what these teams are going to do yet this year, including us. So with that being said, I'm not going to keep rambling on. I'm going to take the Bears plus 6.5 in this game. Again, I'm not big on them this year at all, but it is the first game. If teams are going to have a little bit of a muck up in the beginning, it's now in week 1. 49ers going on the road. Chicago has a really good home base. I think they'll come out in droves for that game, give the Bears a good home field advantage. I'm taking the Bears plus 6.5.
All right. Bears 6.5 is Chris's first pick. I'll jump in with mine. This is of the 5. This is probably the one I feel the least confident in. But I have the Monday night game. I have the Denver Broncos minus 6.5 going into Seattle. Obviously, you're going to hear a lot of chatter with Russell Wilson going back into Seattle for his first game as a Denver Bronco. I do think the Seattle crowd will be fired up. I think the Seahawks will be fired up. But I just don't see there being ill will towards Russell Wilson to the point where it's going to be a rallying cry for this team. I mentioned when we talked about Denver early in the year, I have a feeling that it could take this team a little bit longer to gel than most would think. But with that said, I just don't see Seattle being able to keep up offensively or defensively. With the defense Seattle has, I really see Denver scoring at least 27 points. And I just don't see any Geno Smith team scoring at least 20 against this Denver defense. So I'm going to take the Broncos. I'm going to lay the 6.5. Again, it's not great to open the season with a road favorite on Monday night. But I just don't – I think Russ will have a little more juice in the tank and give me them to cover. I'll say 27-17.
We're gonna make some money together on that one, man. That's one of my picks too. Denver -6.5. Listen, Seattle's just not the same Seattle that of years past. This team is not good this year. They're not going to be good. They're 3-6 straight up in their last 9 games at home. We know how that's a crazy stat because of how great they've been at home the last several years until recently, till I'd say last year being the first one where they really flipped over and just weren't good at all. But in the middle part of this decade, they've been unbeatable there. So like I said, 3-6 in their last 9 games at home. I did also see a trend where Denver, I believe, was 5-1 against the spread their last 6 games against the NFC. So yeah, I'm all on Denver -6.5 in this game. I'm not going to spend too much more time on it because you said a lot of it already as well. So I agree with you, Denver -6.5.
And those of you guys who like to play first touchdown, anytime touchdown, look out for Jerry Jeudy. I could see him catching a long bomb to open the game for them. So Chris also has Denver -6.5. So that'll be your second pick marked down. So I'll get to my second pick here. And I have a lot of small underdogs left on the card. And I'm going to start with the Jacksonville Jaguars, getting 2.5 in Washington. I mentioned when we talked Jacksonville last week, I think this team is ready to be competitive, but I'm not sure they have enough to win football games. But I think they're going to be a really good team against the spread. You heard our thoughts earlier when we talked Washington on the podcast this morning, just not really seeing the love. Carson Wentz got, taken to school by this Jacksonville team at the end of last year. And I'm a big fan of coaches going against their ex-quarterbacks. So you have Doug Peterson for Jacksonville against Carson Wentz. And I like that play because coaches are going to know what their quarterback's weaknesses are. They've had conversations, the two of them, and Carson has probably been like, I'm not comfortable with X or I'm not comfortable with Y. And they game plan around that. And if you don't think Doug Peterson knows all the intricacies of Carson Wentz and what's going on there, I think you're wrong. I think the Jacksonville offense is going to be a little bit feistier than you would think. James Robinson looks to be active, although we'll see how much he can give off the Achilles. But you'll have Travis Etienne. Jacksonville has Evan Ingram. They have Christian Kirk, a couple new weapons. I think offensively they have enough to stay in this game, if not outright win. So give me the Jags plus the 2.5. I wouldn't be scared to sprinkle some money line on it as well.
Yeah, I thought about that game also. I chose instead, though, to go down to Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, starting the season off in a bitter rival game against the Bengals, the AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. Whoever thought we'd be saying that? But here we are. The last 3 times that these teams have played, the Bengals have won by an average score of around 31-12, including last year when the Bengals won 41-10 in Cincinnati, their last meeting at home in Cincinnati. So I'm actually going to take the Bengals here. The line that I caught it at is 6.5. So Bengals -6.5. Not sold on Mitch Trubisky being the starter out the gate. If it was Pickett, believe it or not, I might actually flip this and go with Pittsburgh against Pittsburgh on the road to cover the spread, not to win necessarily, but at least to make it a close game. Not sure. I'm really not trusting Trubisky in that spot. At least there'd be a little bit of a shock and all kind of thing with Pickett being the rookie. The Bengals really wouldn't know how to game plan him at this level yet, so wouldn't have any NFL tape on them. So it might be a little bit of a better chance for the Steelers, but that's not the direction they're going. They're going with Trubisky. There's plenty of tape on him and plenty of time for the Bengals and the rest of the country to know that he stinks. So I'm going to ride the Bengals here -6.5 and getting off to a good start to defend their AFC crown.
Are you wearing the orange shirt because you're just going to bet all orange?
You know what?
Teams? You have Broncos, Bears, Bengals so far. 6.5 is spread on all.
I didn't even think about that. And I'm not even a big fan of orange, but that's my football team I'm coaching. So, but yeah, I might as well be rocking the Bengals orange at this point because I'm going to go with them pretty heavy on this game.
Fair enough. My next bet, a team I talked heavily about in the NFC North is the Minnesota Vikings. They have a big game week 1 as they will host the Green Bay Packers, and they are home dogs getting 1.5. To me, this is a spot. If the Vikings are going to have the breakthrough year that I think they're going to have, they have an opportunity at home and they need to make a statement.
You love the Vikings. You're a big Viking guy.
I think they're going to be good this year in the regular season. I wouldn't bank on Kirk in a playoff game, but I think I like them in the regular season to win that division, but they need to start off. They need to make a statement to the Packers, and they're getting them in the right spot. We talked about how Aaron Rodgers has all new receivers. We're not sure if Alan Lazard is playing. Obviously, he has lost Devontae Adams. He lost Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's pretty much going to have a group full of nobodies outside of Randall Cobb, who is however old at this point. There's no better spot for Minnesota to make a statement than this game at home with a new coach, with a new system that Green Bay hasn't seen yet. I'm going to take Minnesota as the home dog, as Aaron Rodgers still needs to get a little bit familiar with the weapons that he has. Give me Minnesota plus the 1.5.
I agree. I mean, this is the time right now for Minnesota to show off, out the gate that they're going to be a competitor this year, not just in their division, but if they can beat up on them bad enough in this game, maybe it'll put the league on notice or the conference on notice as well. I'm going to, it couldn't be this podcast without picking the Birds.
Go Birds.
Eagles, Lions. We're going to Detroit, going to Motown. Eagles -4. Last time these guys played was actually last year, Halloween, 44-6. Eagles went into Detroit and stopped the Lions. Obviously, it's, that line, that score would tell you that it's going to probably be another blowout. However, I'll be honest, that -4 scares me a little bit.
Well, I'm going to do you a favor. The line dropped to -3.5 on FanDuel, so you get it at 3.5.
So that's interesting to me. I don't know why that's happening. I don't know if it's a little bit of Hard Knocks love that Detroit's getting, but nonetheless, I just don't see their defense being able to keep up with the Eagles top to bottom. Jalen Hurts is a dangerous weapon, especially with his feet. So they did get Aiden Hutchinson. They drafted Aiden Hutchinson this year. The Lions did for their D-line. That's going to make a difference. He obviously wasn't there or in the NFL for that matter the last time these two teams played last year. But nonetheless, I just think the Eagles are a better team, and I think they're more than 4 points better. I think that this is a bad line. It's a Lions kind of line, I think, but I still think it's too low. I would have had this probably around 6.5, 7.5, maybe even, in my opinion. But Vegas knows a lot, so we'll see. But if it's a trick, I'm biting the bait. I'm taking the Eagles -4.
It does smell a little bit like the Eagles opener last year when they were in Atlanta. I think they were.
And everybody was unsure what to expect. Absolutely, and I think that's this year again, because last year especially we didn't know what the Eagles were going to give us. This year they look really good on paper, and we'll see if it applies to reality. But for me, all we can go for in week 1 is what we see on that paper at the moment, and I think on paper they are worlds better than Detroit. So call me a sucker, but I'm going to go with -4 on the road.
All right. So my fourth pick is going to be another team in the NFC East that we talked about that posted this morning on the podcast. I'm going to take, how about them Cowboys on Sunday? I believe it's Sunday night. Is that the Sunday night game?
I think so.
I'm checking now.
Double check. Yeah.
Yeah, it is the Sunday night game. So I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys plus 2.5 at home against Tampa Bay. And I just have a vision that I'm seeing. And I'm seeing it on Monday morning on First Take, seeing it Monday morning on, what's the Skip Bayless show? Undisputed. On Undisputed. Yeah. Is Tom Brady finally done? Is the merit or the marital issues is what's being rumored, is the hiatus that Tom Brady took going to ruin the Buccaneer season? And the answer to that is no. The Buccaneers are going to be fine, but I see the week 1 overreaction coming, and I think Dallas is being undervalued at home. Tampa Bay going in with a banged up Chris Godwin. We don't know what his status is on a snap count. Mike Evans will be playing. He had a little bit of a hamstring injury in camp. there's just a lot of things in Tampa Bay that are unsettled, and I'm not sure that they're going to be ready for the first week. Dallas is still a tough place to play, especially in prime time. I think they're going to be ready. And the one way to beat Tom Brady is with pressure, and they still have DeMarcus Lawrence, and they still have Parsons that can get to the quarterback. I just think Tampa Bay will be a little bit off edge. Give me Dallas plus the 2.5.
Yeah, and that's also the kind of game that the Dallas Cockroaches are going to come out after that. If they can pull it out, and you're right, they're going to be all over the world, just out of their dug in holes and their burrows, just coming out and making their presence felt. But we'll see. That game does scare me a little bit as far as if I was on the Bucks end of it, I would be a little bit nervous just because it's, again, week one, anything can happen. My best bet, my lock of the week.
I'm going to jump in just so you guys know, when we do our best bets here, it's going to count as 2 games in the standings. So you can be 0-2 or 2-0, depending on how your best bet goes.
Yeah. So, and it's a little bit, I mean, it's a big line to do it, but the Ravens -7.5, I have it at against the Jets at the Meadowlands.
Actually 6.5 now.
It's 6.5. Okay, so we'll take the 6.5. You can give me a 7.5 too if you want, but I think this game has route all over it. I think it's got like 35-12.
It's a Joe Flacco revenge game, though.
Yeah, something like that. Baltimore is just they're hungry. They had a terrible end of the season last year, obviously. The only chance the Jets have is if Lamar Jackson comes out and he's just not himself because he's got the contract situation on his mind. If that hasn't gotten resolved by that point in time, I think that he set a deadline for tomorrow, for Friday, on that. So we'll see if that gets done or not. But even still, it reminds me of the game when they went into Miami a few years ago, opening day, and just beat them like 49-10, and just it was a complete joke. I see that same thing happening in this game. I'm not going to waste much more breath on it. Ravens -7.5, I think is a lock, or 6.5. I'm sorry, is a lock.
I looked at that game as well. Probably if we had to go to 6 games, I would have probably had it as my 6th pick. I need to see a little bit from the Ravens running game. I'm not sure what they're going to have in the backfield, and a little bit concerns is I want to see the passing game work with the limited options that they have, but I like that game as well.
I mean, how old is Flacco now? 38, 39? How old? I mean, he's got to be up there. And you're asking him to beat a team that's a physical team like Baltimore, even though it's in his stadium. I just don't see it happening. I think Baltimore is going to just run crazy all over them.
Well, yeah. Plus, you only had the Jets for 2 wins this year, so obviously you don't think too highly.
Yeah, I mean, and they're the worst team in football, in my opinion. So they're going to show that on Sunday.
All right, my best bet. I felt a lot better about this afternoon until this point spread just moved dramatically away from me, which scares me a little bit. But there's 2 teams, and again, Chris, we talked about we have no games to go off of. And there's a team that in our divisional previews I was extremely high on, and there's a team that I was extremely low on, and they're facing each other. And I'm taking the Carolina Panthers over the Cleveland Browns. Okay. Now, what scares me about this matchup, this afternoon, Carolina was a 2.5-point favorite, and as of right now, they're a 1.5-point underdog. So some big time money, and there's still a lot of. I looked at the stats; it looks like a lot of the wagers are on Carolina, which makes me think a big wager has come in on Cleveland.
Something's up. Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, I think Carolina could be a double-digit win team if Christian McCaffrey stays healthy, and for Week 1, he's healthy. I'm not a Jacoby Brissett guy. I think that Carolina can key in on the running game of Cleveland's because they're going to dare Brissett to beat him, and I don't think he can do it. Carolina's got a good enough defense, and they have enough weapons on offense to really put up some points that I don't think Cleveland can, especially being at home. Only thing that scares me is Cleveland's defensive line is very strong. Carolina's offensive line was a little weak last year, but they've made upgrades. We just haven't seen them on the field at this point in time. So I'm going to stick with my team that I have as a sleeper in the NFC. I'm taking the Carolina Panthers as a 2-unit play at +1.5.
I actually can see that happening as well. Cleveland's going to be a little bit interesting in the beginning of the season.
All right, so we have our picks. I'll run through them again real quick. For myself, I have Denver -6.5, Jacksonville +2.5, Minnesota +1.5, Dallas +2.5, and Carolina +1.5. For Chris, the Bears +6.5, Denver minus 6.5, Cincy minus 6.5, Eagles minus 3.5, and the Ravens minus 6.5. You really like those 6.5 point lines, huh?
I guess so. Yeah. How about that? I just realized that.
All right, that'll wrap it up for our first pick segment here.
Let's make some money, y'all.
Let's make money together. Except let's beat Chris for it first and foremost.
But be smart first and foremost. If you're going to bet, be smart on it.
It's only week one, guys. It's all about the pace. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon.
That's right.
But I do want to shout out for those of you guys watching us on YouTube who haven't checked out the podcast. Please feel free to go give us a listen. We get into depth on a lot of topics where we just go, a lot deeper dive than we're going to do here. We'll have some gambling stuff on there, but just some general sports as well. It's 3 in the Keystone, also known as the 3K podcast, available on Apple. It's available on Spotify. It's also available on Buzzsprout. Feel free to follow us on Twitter at 3 K podcast, or like us on Facebook, 3 in the Keystone, all spelled out. And we'll be back every week on this YouTube channel to post our picks. So feel free to subscribe. Looking forward to getting into it with you. Anything else, Chris, before we sign off?
That's it, man. Let the games begin.
Let's do it. Drop that beat.